Hi, I'm Adam and welcome back to First Man Photography, where today I am trying to rediscover my passion for long exposure photography, because I think in the world of AI and mobile phones, long exposure still allows for us with the big camera and the tripod to do something that no one else can really do. Ish. We'll see. I've just set up a 5-minute and 30-second exposure and it's just started to rain. Conditions have been difficult to say the least recently up here in Yorkshire, so let's see what we can come up with today. Before we get going today though, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a domain name, a website or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace. But it's raining quite heavily now, so conditions are not easy, particularly for long exposure photography. That picture I was just exposing then, I already made a mistake. And I think when I was doing a lot of long exposure photography, the way I used to be successful with an image was having a very practiced workflow, because the technique requires quite a lot of different things with the filters and the shutter speed and the calculation of the exposure. I've forgotten all that. It's basically gone out the window and I've made mistakes and underexposed that first image, which caught probably a nice bit of weather before it started raining, and now I've had to redo it. The one thing I do have in my favour is if I turn around, the rain, if you see the camera, is kind of going that way. So although the filter is exposed to the elements, it's kind of, the rain is kind of going past it and downwards, which is quite nice because the conditions are interesting and it's getting moody and probably making this shot better with the rain. And I'm just using the hill coming from the left, creating kind of triangle shapes in the landscape basically, with the trees into the distant hills. There is a reservoir back there as well, which we unfortunately can't see. I did it with 10 stop filter and that wasn't enough really. So I've now put the 16 stop filter on, which means I've had to bump that ISO up to bring the shutter speed down to about 5.5 minutes, which is about as long as I really want to go. Otherwise, I don't think there's any benefit of going any longer than that, even in very still conditions. So yeah, I kind of feel all over the place at the moment, hence the fact that I'm rediscovering long exposure. And it's amazing when you don't practice a skill, it just leaves your brain, like no retention whatsoever. Although that does make it fun at a time like this when I'm having to learn again, because I love it. I feel like the rain might have changed direction. Let's just sneak. Yeah, there's quite a lot of water on the filter now. Maybe that'll work, maybe it won't. The other rookie mistake I've made is not bringing a lens cloth, so let's have a look at the... Actually, it looks okay. It's possibly now even just a little bit overexposed. I reckon there's going to be enough data in there though. That's pretty moody and dramatic, you know. Let's just zoom in on the trees. There's a bit of movement in the leaves, but not too much. It's not too windy. As a first shot of the day of this nice little... Look at the clouds now! Of this nice little tree. I think that's quite interesting. I might do another one now that the rain has stopped. Whoa, it's going to be one of those days where there's loads going on. I can just feel it. So the sun's back out and it's really rather nice again. I decided to come out today to do some long exposure photography because the other day I was inspired by the work of David Queenan, who I know watches these videos sometimes, and he is an amazing photographer and does some amazing long exposure photography. And I saw one the other day that he posted, which was just beautiful. A fantastic image, and I commented because I just think the tones are so beautiful and complementary. And it's just like the perfect use of long exposure, where you've got that static object against the moving object or the moving subject of the water. And it just looked beautiful, and it inspired me to get out and do some. One of the criticisms often aimed at long exposure photography is that it's not real, it's not realistic. But the thing with long exposure, I think, is that it is true. It is the truth, it is realistic. It's just a reality that we can't see with our eyes. When we do long exposure photography, the camera sees life over a period of, say, 5 minutes, like I just did, and condenses that down into one image. That's still real. I haven't done anything to edit that last photograph at all in terms of manipulating the technique and effect. It's all just what the camera saw. So how can that not be real? It's just a perception in a different way. That sun is just fantastic now. And I think that makes it especially intriguing. Now, that last image as well, I think, or that last composition at least, it was pretty interesting because I shot it 3 times. So in total, I was exposing for about 16, 17 minutes back there, and the weather changed hugely in that time. And I captured 3 final shots, and they all look completely different, with different colours, different tones, different moods. I'll show you, I'll put them all up as I'm talking here, but I think that's just fascinating, and it makes it exciting. And you know, on days like today when it is very changeable, I think every shot has the potential to be like that. Towards the end, I'm going to go back down there to the reservoir and do something that I've not done for a long time, and that is to do a panoramic long exposure photograph. So yeah, we've got that to look forward to later. A bit nervous because there's every chance it won't work, but let's carry on. Now that I've got to nearly the top of the hill, come across this tree, which I think is probably a bit better looking than the one I photographed back down there, with virtually the same background. I'm tempted to shoot it, but I don't think I'm going to, because I think with the shape of that trunk and a bit of the muddy patch around the bottom of it, that tree is going to be perfect when it's full of frost or full of snow. Exploring is the way to go. Bit of curiosity. I've been absolutely caning myself in the gym, particularly on the cross trainer. I set it to a really difficult setting to try and simulate what it's like climbing up these hills with all this weight. So yeah, that seems to be working wonders at the moment. I'm feeling good. Back still hurts annoyingly, but I don't suppose there's much getting away from that. That's a nice little tree as well there. The lungs and heart aren't burning like they were even just a year ago, so that is a win. I'm loving the conditions today, the view towards those sheeps and that imposing weather that's hanging over Teesside at the moment in the distance over there. I think that's coming this way, so it's going to be interesting again. So I'm just waiting for the sunset now, and I think it could go either way. It's definitely going to be interesting whatever happens, but I think it's a good time to remind you that today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. And in my opinion, Squarespace is the best place for photographers to build their own website. And there's never been a better time to build your own website, because social media stinks on the whole. Elon's mucked Twitter up. Instagram's terrible. There's hardly anyone on Flickr, but we still want to share our images. So the best place to do that is where you are in total control of it, and that is with your own website. And like I say, Squarespace just makes it so good and so easy to get set up, starting with one of their beautiful templates. And then you choose that, you put some of your beautiful images on there, a little bit of your text, and before you know it, you will have a unique and beautiful looking website. Technical knowledge, you don't need that either. If you can drag boxes around on Windows, then you can build a Squarespace website. You can start with just a simple gallery and the images look great, but then if you want to, you can upgrade it to an online store where you can sell anything like books or prints or calendars, anything that your heart desires. You can even now run a subscription service through their members area where you can keep people coming back to your website time and time again. They've got award-winning customer service. It looks good on all your devices, including a phone, which is very important these days. So go to squarespace.com or click the link down below, start your free trial, and then once you've decided that you like what you've created, use the offer code FIRSTMAN, that's FIRSTMAN, tell them I sent you there, and you will get 10% off your first purchase. Right. Woo! I'm excited for the sunset here, very excited. It's a very lovely evening to be out. Right, so I'm set up for my final image of the day on the side of this rather beautiful reservoir, and I'm planning on doing a panoramic long exposure photograph. Now, I've done this once before on the channel, and that was on the south bank of London. Now, that is a spot where you usually get turfed away when you set a tripod up, but I had the tripod fully set up. I was filming, doing all sorts. No one came and saw me. I didn't ask permission. I just did it. And I think sometimes you just need to do that. I got the shot, and this is the image here. It worked out pretty well, but there were some difficulties because there were 6 minutes each. So things changed within that time, obviously. And there was a little bit of a problem stitching some of the water together and some of the clouds. But I did manage to do it in the end. I think it's a pretty effective image. And that is probably going to be the same problem I have here. Now, the cloud is nice, and there's a little bit of colour in the sky, and you get that lovely reflection, but I just don't think there's enough interest there. But the bank at the other side, there's a lot more detail in there. There's a lot more shape and form in there, which I really like. And that's why I am using the 70 to 200 lens to zoom in on that. It also makes the panorama a bit easier because I can use this lens mount, and it spins around that point so you don't get any parallax shift. Technical stuff that doesn't really matter, but it is going to be as close as I can get it to technically perfect. I think also what I'm going to do is that the clouds, or the wind, are blowing the clouds that way across the sky. So if I start on the left with the first shot, second shot in the middle, third shot on the right, travel with the clouds, it may have an easier time of stitching it together. There's not much wind, so they're not moving very fast. It also means that I think the water is going to remain pretty constant throughout all 3 images. It's the light changing as well. It's going to be a challenge, and we're right at sunset now, so it may get warmer and more colour in the sky as I go. So lots of technical challenges here, which I quite enjoy. I usually do my panoramas vertical, but I'm going to do it horizontal because, well, I don't want to be stood here all day. I'm at f8 ISO 100, and I'm going to do it for, if I just turn the bulb timer on here, 1 minute and 19 seconds, which it's not going to be super long. It's not as long as the one we did earlier on. It's just going to be enough to smooth that water out and put a little bit of subtle movement in the clouds, which will help it also then stitch together, I think. Will it? I don't know. Let's find out. Right, first one, that's going to be the middle shot, so let's go there. 2-second timer, and there we go. 1 minute 19 seconds later, I'll do the next one, and then the next one, and I won't make you wait for all that. I will show you that image at the end. Hopefully there'll be a little bit of colour in the sky as things change. You can see up there now, can you? Yes, that there is a bit of colour around, and I want that to spread across the sky to make it an interesting and warm image. Yeah, it's been difficult with the weather recently. It's been a strange time for me moving out of the office and readjusting to that. It's It's now the summer holidays, my kids are at home all the time as well, which is great on the one hand, but it makes me not want to work really. So yeah, very strange time. Lots going on. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I'll show you that image now. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Have you ever tried panoramic long exposure photography? Do you intend to? Do you think it's worth it? I'd love to hear from you. Those comments keep me going. And yeah, that's it. Bye.